So thank you so much for coming today. I appreciate every one of you being here. Today we are talking about private activity bond and housing trust fund applications to El Paso County and the El Paso County Housing Authority. My name is Randy Davis. I'm a community development analyst here with the county. So our agenda for today, I'm going to give you an overview of the programs that we have at El Paso County. Then we'll talk about the application, and I'll actually show you the application and go through it page by page, and then give you some tips and tricks for submitting that application. Then we're going to stop the recording and I'll do a little Q&A if you have any questions. So to get started, a little bit about the El Paso County Housing Authority. So our housing authority was established in 1993, and it's a non-traditional housing authority. We do not own or manage anything. What our housing authority does is we promote the availability of affordable, accessible housing in the county for persons of limited means. Our housing authority was established back in 1993 because El Paso County had some private single family bond proceeds from back in the day that they wanted to use to build affordable housing in our community. And they wanted to loan that out into the community for developers. And the county cannot loan money. They're not allowed. So they had to create a housing authority to do that. Our housing authority meets the second Wednesday of every month here in our office at 9 East Vermajo. And there's 5 members on the board. We have somebody from the banking industry, housing development and finance. We have a real estate person, somebody from the local government, and somebody from the building industry that they meet and make the decisions for our housing authority. We have a semi-annual application process for housing trust fund and private activity bonds. It's all on the same schedule now. It's all on the same application. And the next one is due May 1st by 5 p.m. That's why we're doing this little webinar. And it is a competitive process for both the Housing Trust Fund and private activity bonds. So first, just to get into private activity bonds, since it's a little quicker and easier, private activity bonds are a financing means for developers that the investor puts the money in, and the developer builds affordable housing. And as long as that housing stays affordable at a certain level, then any income that the investor makes off of that investment, they get that tax-free. So the investor gets tax-free income, we get affordable housing. So that's how that works. Private activity bonds are issued by El Paso County, so it does require Board of County Commissioner approval. But the applications are recommended by the Housing Authority, so that's why it's part of our application process. Annually, El Paso County gets about $14 million in bond cap that we can allocate to developments throughout El Paso County, and that includes the city of Colorado Springs. The amount that we get every year is based on population. So Colorado Springs gets their own private activity bond allocations, and theirs is about $35 million. Just in comparison. And you can see in the picture there, that's Panorama Heights. That picture was in November. They're really, really close to being complete right now. You can see they got about 23 million of private activity bonds. So these are for the much larger projects. When it comes to private activity bonds, you have to use half of the development has to use private activity bonds, and the rest is financed with something else or other things put together. So you can see Panorama Heights was probably a $46 million deal when it's all said and done. These are for the very, very large projects. So who's eligible for private activity bonds? We've got private developers, nonprofit housing organizations, and other agencies that have experience. And again, the application process, May 1st, November, for the cycle here on May 1st. So if you're interested in applying for those private activity bonds, it's on the application. If you are interested, though, you need to start conversations with staff very, very early on these because you can see it's a large number. There are many fingers that go into these deals, and we have to plan it out a lot harder than the Housing Trust Fund loans. So what is the Housing Trust Fund? So the Housing Trust Fund is administered by the El Paso County Housing Authority. We use it to promote suitable living environments for all persons and families in our county, throughout the county. It is a revolving loan fund. Currently, it stands at about $7 million, but it's used for two different programs here at the county. So first, we have a down payment assistance program, Pikes Peak Down Payment Assistance, that helps home buyers when they want to become homeowners. And that's part of the program. The other part of the program is these housing trust fund loans that help developers who want to build affordable housing. There's no annual recurring infusions of money. We don't get new money into this housing trust fund. What we have is what we need to keep revolving. So our housing trust fund loans are not grants. It has to be a loan that is repaid over time. And again, the application process is the same for private activity bonds. So we like to say the F in Housing Trust Fund is not for fund, it's for flexibility. So when it comes to the Housing Trust Fund, it's flexible funding terms. So developers can apply for anywhere from $200,000 to $500,000. We can also do smaller loans if we're doing a smaller development. Just realize that we're looking at about $5,000 to $10,000 per unit. So if you're building 10 units, $100,000 would be an acceptable application. Interest rates are 2 to 3% typically. I've seen some less if that's what it takes for the developer to get their numbers to come together. And amortized repayments is preferred. So when we want this loan paid back, again, it has to be revolving so we can continue to help developments in our community. The F, flexibility, is also for flexible project types. We like to see all kinds of housing around here. So the focus is on creating or maintaining affordable multifamily rental units. That's our focus right now. But we've also done home ownership, homelessness and special needs housing, and housing rehab. Those are still possibilities. If you've got a project you want to talk about, let's talk. But typically we use CDBG funding for those kind of things instead. And that comes out of our office as well, and we'd be happy to talk to you about that. The F is also for flexible usage. So we like to call this gap financing. So typically with those larger projects, they have low-income housing tax credits or private activity bonds or something that makes up the majority of the funding. And this 200 to 500,000 is like a gap filler. But we do not define usage requirements. So it doesn't matter what you use this stuff for, as long as it goes into that development to help you create affordable housing. Our developers really like that around here because those other funding sources, those tax credits and bonds and everything, those have so many rules attached to them on what you can do with them that this gap funding being flexible is very helpful to them. A little bit of application information. So our Housing Authority Board likes to focus on these major points. They want to see development location. We would love to get more developments outside the city of Colorado Springs limits. It's much more difficult though because of utilities and water and all of that, but we would love to see them outside of Colorado Springs. Project timeline, they do not like to commit funds to a project that isn't closing within the next 12 months. Income targeting, so they want to know that you're helping families like at 60% of area median income or 80% or 30% or whatever you're looking at. Unit count and mix. So again, they like to see if you're doing a smaller development, 5,000 to 10,000 per unit for Housing Trust Fund, or if you're doing those larger developments, when we're talking private activity bonds, we want to see what the unit count is for that as well. We want to see a completed financial stack. So we want to see where you're getting your money and what you're spending it on. So sources and uses. That's part of all of the application processes for the big money as well. So just shoot us a copy of that. And we want to see some kind of repayment schedule for the county for Housing Trust Fund money because, again, it has to be revolving. So that has to show up clearly on the pro forma. And I'll show you where that comes in. It's on the application. We want to see if there's any zoning issues. So you hear a lot of complaints and appeals and issues before we get into this. And if there's any benefits beyond housing. So are you providing any services? Or do you have any partnerships or collaborations? Or, is there anything going on at that development that makes it special or unique that we should know about? Here's our timeline for the next application. So again, they're due May 1st by 5 p.m. We will have a housing authority meeting here at our office on May 14th. That's where I'll present the applications to the board and they'll go over them for an initial review. Then sometime after that, usually within the next couple of days, I will let you know if they have picked your application to come in and do a presentation. Presentations are June 11th here at the Economic Development Office, and that's where you get about 15 minutes to present your case. I request that you send me your materials at least by June 6th so that I can give those to the board ahead of time. And then by the end of June, we'll have approval letters sent out. So you'll know if you've been chosen for funding from the Housing Trust Fund or private activity bonds. And then the other two over at the right-hand side there, sometime before closing documents are prepared by our legal counsel, QTAC Rock, and signed by either the Housing Authority Board or Board of County Commissioners for private activity bonds. And if it's a housing trust fund loan, then a cashier's check is delivered to the title company at closing. So I do that personally. When it comes to private activity bonds, if you're making an application, some recommendations, and well, we give you recommendations. An email is sent to the developments that are recommended, outlining the next steps. Then you have to go to Board of County Commissioner meetings for an inducement resolution. Then we have to have a TEFRA hearing, Tax Equity and Fiscal Responsibility Act hearing. We do that here at our office. And then you go to Board of County Commissioners for a second meeting for approval. And that's a couple of weeks before closing. So a little bit longer cycle on those private activity bonds. For the Housing Trust Fund, you'll get a commitment letter. So the commitment letter is sent to all developments that are approved, and it tells the details about the development as you applied for them. So you tell us what unit count and mix and AMI levels and everything you're looking to do. We're going to put that in our letter. It tells you what loan terms like interest rate and amortization and all that we're offering, and any conditions of participation. So you can see in the examples over there on the right-hand side, some of the conditions that we put in that letter is you have to get sufficient funding to complete the project, right? We're not going to put our housing trust fund loan in if you don't have the rest of the funding together. You have to have executed loan documents. You have to pay expenses like the attorney fees that we have going into this. They're all paid by the developer. And then you have to have a resolution. We have to have a resolution. So receipt of all of those things. Once we send that commitment letter, we do require an acceptance of that, but you can just send an email back to us saying that that's fine. Those commitment letters typically expire within 12 months. So that means you have to go to closing within 12 months. If it doesn't happen for some reason, we can talk about extending that, or we just rescind our commitment so that we can do another development. And no matter what, let's say you're penciling out this development, you got your commitment letter, we're heading towards closing, and you've got to make some changes. Maybe your unit count changes, or maybe the AMI levels change, or whatever it is. You have to come back to the Housing Authority Board for any of those changes. Whatever's written in that letter, if you're doing something different, it has to go back to the board for approval. So, are you ready to apply? So do you have plans to obtain site control? Do you own the property already, or do you have a contract on it? You have to make sure there's no zoning issues or that you're working through them. We would like to see a phase 1 environmental study, and if a phase 2 is required, that you're looking into it at least. Some kind of a market study so that we know that you know why the housing is needed in that area. Some kind of preliminary development plans. If you don't have some sketches or drawings where you're going to locate that building on the site, what that building's going to look like, then it's probably too preliminary for us at this point. And a pro forma. So again, that's part of the application. It tells how you're going to pay your bills for the first 15 years at least. And if applicable, if you're applying for low-income housing tax credits or private activity bonds, we'd like to see all that information as well. So let's take a look at the application. You can find it on the website. There's the link right there, and I'll send it to you after this webinar as well. But I'm going to take a quick look here at the application and just run through the 5 or 6 tabs down here really quick. So this is the actual application. I filled it in for a fictional Randy Lee Davis development. So I'm going to be a developer and submit an application. So you can see here it says, please only fill in the yellow cells. So I filled in all of my information up here. I am going to build a new construction project with mixed tenancy, and it's going to be called RLD Apartments. And I'm planning to close by December of this year. So that's useful information. Remember, we want it to close within the next year. And we're hoping to be done building over the following year and lease up in January of 2027. And we're going to keep that apartment complex affordable for 30 years. Like I said, this application can be used for both Housing Trust Fund and private activity bonds. So over here, we said, yes, we're going to apply for Housing Trust Fund, and I popped in the number we're asking for, the interest rate, the years that we're going to have that loan, and whether that loan is secured or unsecured. So obviously they want to see it secured. And like I said, they want to see fully amortized, but I have seen deals that they've approved that were paid out of cash flow or fully deferred. So those are options as well. And when you want that commitment to expire, obviously I didn't change that number up. We want it to expire after that. So I'd probably say 1/1/26 on that, so that we can get through December for the closing. And then, of course, they want to see what position it's going to be in, and lien position they like to be in second, but they also understand that a lot of the bigger funders around here, DOLA, CHAFA, they like to be in second. So the Housing Authority has been in third lately. Over here, you can see private activity bond request. If we were to select yes, then you've got information to fill in for private activity bonds if you're requesting that as part of this application as well. Down here, we've got provide a brief summary of the project. So I've highlighted in red some of the stuff that they're looking for. Like here, my apartment is going to be built on land that I already own. It's already zoned single family, but we've been working to change that, and we're nearing completion. Again, they want to make sure that you're at least working on it. Here we have AMI levels between 30 and 60, averaging at 49. Here we're partnering to do veteran vouchers in the project. And we're going to provide an extensive array of services. So transportation, food pantry, behavioral health, case management, resource navigation, all sorts of stuff that they're going to provide. And here's the unit mix. We're going to have some 1 bedrooms, some 2 bedrooms, some 3 bedrooms. Again, all that stuff that I suggested in the slideshow. They want to see that when you're providing your summary there of the project. The next section, sorry, it scooted too fast there. They want to know information about you. As you're developing your project, they want to know about you. So your information there. And then information about a market study. So we're hoping that you've got some kind of study that says affordable housing is needed in that area. So provide information there. We want to know if there's any services. So here you can provide that information again. If the project's not awarded the funding, how are you going to take care of it? Information there. And then, can this closing be completed within 1 year? So remember, they don't want to commit funds if it's not going to close within a year. So they want that right up front. Then we give you this nice little chart of things to include with your submittal if you have them. So a detailed timeline, any other funding commitments that you've got. If you've got some approval letters or support letters, we want to see that. And an organizational chart and a list of your board of directors so we know who's running the program. Market study, if you have one. Development plan, again, if you've gotten that far, we'd appreciate seeing those things. And then some kind of a slide deck overviewing the project. I've seen some flyers, some booklets. I'm sure you had to put those things together for other presentations, so we'd like to see it as well. The next tab is the budget for the development. So again, you only fill in the yellow spots and it all calculates for you at the bottom. All of this information, again, should be in other applications that you have to submit. We actually copied some of the applications that are around here to get ours done. The next tab here is income and expenses. So how are you going to pay your bills for the next 15 years? Here's where we figure it out. You're going to have so many one-bedroom apartments and you're going to make $863 off of those per month, and this is the total rent that you're going to receive, and it calculates everything down here for you. Next tab is about financing. So we want to know your financing sources. So here you've got a first mortgage. We don't know where we're getting it yet, but it's going to be a conventional loan, and here's the loan information. So again, you just fill in the yellow spots. There's information for a second loan or a third if you have to have it. Here's the housing trust fund, and it auto-populated for us off the information you put in the first tab. Here's tax equity information. If you're going for low-income housing tax credits, you put in that information. Other grants and loans, and we've got blank spots here. So there's new stuff rolling out all the time. If you get some kind of a loan or into a program through the state or a CHFA or something, you can put that in as well. Last two tabs. The next one is our pro forma. This is showing how you're going to be paying your bills for the next 15 years. And here's the El Paso County Housing Authority Housing Trust Fund repayment line right there. They want to see that they're getting paid back as part of that pro forma. And then the last tab, well, not the last tab with information in it, is your sources and uses. So it's just a general breakdown of these are the loans that you said you were getting in the financing tab. It auto-populates over here. And then you just have to tell us, have you applied for it? Are you planning to apply for it? Is it committed? So that we know where you are in the project. And then the very last tab is notes, just in case you need it. Again, that application is on the website under Housing Trust Fund. So just do a search for that, El Paso County Housing Trust Fund. So a couple of tips and tricks. Give as much information as you can. Any documentation, any studies, any paperwork, anything that you've got can be very helpful. The PowerPoints, like I said, it's not required, but usually you have to give them to other places anyway. You have to do presentations all over the place. So if you've already got it, definitely submit it to us as well. Have your financial stack sorted out the best you can, because that's what they're going to be looking at first. I can guarantee that. And then all of this stuff, it takes a lot of space and it's hard to email. So if you would like, contact me ahead of time and I'll give you a Dropbox link so that you can submit those things easily. I've already given out one Dropbox link for this upcoming application, so just let me know if that would be useful for you. So there's my contact information. I am available anytime for questions. And I always love talking about developments with people. So let me know what you've got going on.